Welcome to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. I'm your host, John Braddock, author of the Amazon bestseller, Click Here When I Die, and the founder of My Life and Wishes, an online planning and document storage solution created to make things easier for those you love. Now, this show is about the importance of estate planning and why everyone needs to do it, and the unfortunate consequences of what happens far too often if people have not planned. We just have real conversations here with real people, and we share real stories. We aren't here to elicit fear. We're simply here to educate and get people to think about their own life situation. And today, my friends, we have another exciting episode, and I'm thrilled to introduce Kori Whisenant. Kori is an Ohio licensed attorney with a background in estate planning and probate administration. She received her JD from the University of Dayton School of Law, and she is the owner and managing partner of the law offices of Kori Whisenant, LLC, which provides estate planning and probate administrative services. She's very passionate about educating every aspect surrounding estate planning and helping as many people as she possibly can to fully understand their choices that they have surrounding their finances, their health care, and the legacy that they wish to leave behind. She's assisted single people, couples, families, created comprehensive estate plans to protect the financial stability for them and their loved ones. She's a loving mother of two amazing sons, a loving wife, and a Cleveland native. Welcome, Kori.
Hi, thanks so much, John. I'll tell you this, when I hear my credentials being read out, I'm like, wow. It's been, I guess I have done those things, but it just sounds so much cooler than what really happens. But thank you so very much for having me. I really appreciate you having me on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and it's great to have you back. Just for my audience, Kori and I have known each other for over a year or so now. While she's in Ohio and I'm in Arizona, we get face to face frequently. She's been a guest on another show, Legacy and Libations, back in the early spring with me, and just a delightful person. And I love having conversations with you, Kori.
Thank you. Me too, John. As I said, you are one of my favorite people, and I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to you.
Oh, because you know 5 people?
No, I actually only know 2. But that's regardless.
I know 2, and you're definitely in my top 2 favorites.
And you are totally in my top 2. My husband's the other one.
Awesome. I hope he comes first.
We'll see. No, I'm just messing. No, you're good.
Well, hey, Kori, let's jump into this. As I always like to start, you're an attorney, and I love attorneys. I talk to attorneys all the time. But the first question I always have is, why estate planning? There's so many areas of law that we practice: criminal law, personal injury, family law, real estate, corporate. List goes on and on. So why estate planning for you?
Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, it's the reason for me has two prongs, I guess you could say. The first is when I was in undergrad, I got a psychology degree, which is really a bit of an untraditional background when it comes to an attorney. But I'll tell you this, it has trained me very well to understand the human mind, to understand how we think, how we act. And law has a lot to do with that. You really want to understand people and why they do what they do or why they want what they want. And so when I got to law school, I actually realized that my other half, other than, my psychology, that I'm ridiculously analytical, that I loved, dotting I's and crossing T's and making sure everything is, in its place, and, that it all makes sense. So I guess it kind of falls into place that I became an estate planning attorney, because it is one of the most emotional sets of laws there are. And it is also very methodical, that there are certain ways to do it. It's probably one of the most black and white areas of law that there can be. Either you're complying with the law or you're not. So I loved that area. So I get to mix my two loves, working with people and checking off boxes.
That's
Um,
awesome. What I love about estate planning is, and much like I think psychology degree, I didn't know that actually about you. So
yeah.
that's awesome to have that background in psychology because yeah, I mean, understanding the human mind and the whys people do or don't do things. But what I love about estate planning is so many areas of law are very focused on right now, solving a legal problem that has to be
Yes.
dealt with immediately. This is proactive. This is understanding what can very likely occur, which is not good, but planning for it now, even though that event may be hopefully many, many years into the future.
Yes. You actually hit on the second reason I love it so much is that it deals with family, that it deals with legacy, that I love being able to help people prepare now for what could go on forever. That it does not have to stop with you. That if you can really learn and embrace, what legacy you wish to leave behind, you can teach your children, teach your grandchildren to also, live and believe, you know, how to be proactive and how to take care of one another. So I love that I get a chance to touch many generations, even if I'm not here myself. So it's a great piece of law that I think that each and every one of us, 18 years and older, need to have. So I love being able to really impact families, and really impact the way that they live and think.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's interesting. You found your passion much sooner than I found mine. I had a career in the financial services world for years and years, and it wasn't until a life event, the loss of a family member, that totally shifted my focus away from what I was doing into transitioning to becoming an author on the topic of death and not leaving a mess for those left behind, and then building a platform that's designed to help families, and it's just helping so many more people, and it's all about helping, right? It's not about taking, it's simply about giving, and that's kind of how I look to live my life. But
Me
so,
too. I'm with you.
and I love it. So, this show we call it Estate Planning Nightmares, and I'm not sure it's the greatest title in the world, but the subtitle of how to avoid them, uh, becomes good. And again, I don't want to scare people. That's not the intention of the show, but it is education. So I always like to say, hey, Kori, what you've seen a lot. So can you share either a story or a nightmare or a combination of both with our listeners?
Sure. Well, I'll give you, since I know we're not trying to scare people, I'll do the bad news first, and then I will give you what was the good news. As in, I have a little bit of a two story, where I had a client that actually worked with me and was able to pass away and everything work out the way it should. So I think it's good to show both sides so that you can see the opposite, of when you do plan and when you do have those things in order, that you can move forward and feel that peace of mind. So I guess my first piece would be the ugly, of the good, bad, and ugly. um, this person actually ended up not being able to be a client of mine. I unfortunately had to tell her that there was nothing I could do. That is something that I hate doing, and thankfully I've not had to do very often. So this woman had gotten my name from a colleague of hers. Her husband had a chronic illness and unfortunately didn't have any documentation done. He had no will, no powers of attorney, no HIPAA releases, none of that. So that's already an issue. The second piece is the entirety of their finances were in his name. She had no access to her own money. Everything, it was an old school, if you want to think about it that way, old school couple, where, he had the control, over the finances. So she gives me a call because her husband has now slipped into a coma. And she has access to nothing. So her husband is in and out of consciousness. And she is asking me, what can she do? He has no power of attorney and she can't access the funds. She can't make medical decisions for him. What does she do? I talked to her as much as I could about what was in place, what was, what's going on. And eventually, unfortunately, I had to tell her that there was nothing we could do. That he no longer is in his right mind. He is no longer able to make those kinds of decisions for himself, which means signing a document, whether he could or couldn't, isn't legal anymore. So she had two options. One was to go and try to apply for guardianship down at the probate court, which unfortunately is a timely and expensive venture. Especially with COVID, the probate courts are backed up and it could take over a month and a half to even get a court date, not just be able to be appointed. Or she'd have to wait for her husband to die, where then she can go down to the probate court and open an estate plan. What makes matters worse is she had two stepchildren that hated her. They believed that she married their father for their money and had already told her that if she attempted to do anything with the court, that they were going to battle her to the end. So let's say she decided to go for either of those options, she still would take forever because litigation is going to take way longer than just applying for either of those positions, whether executor or guardian. I literally hung up the phone with this woman and I cried because I knew there was nothing I could do. And that she literally was stuck in a rock, the hard place, probably the hardest place she'll ever be in.
That is like, wow, that's kind of mind blowing. So he's got control of everything. There's no legal document. There's no HIPAA, no POA. He's incapacitated totally. Stepchildren involved who don't like her, who, even if it were a normal situation and he just passed away, sounds like they'd be fighting her tooth and nail. So it's going to be, obviously it's intestate, it's going to probate. Yep. And with that kind of a fight, how many years would you anticipate that lasting?
Let me tell you, depending on how much he had, because I didn't even get that far. If we're talking big money, years, 4, 5, if they're lucky.
And probably minimum $50,000.
Yeah, something of that. Even if they just had the house, be a minimum of maybe 50,000. So you're sitting there having, and that they had bank accounts because she couldn't get in them. I didn't get to talk to her about how much was in it. At that point, I couldn't do anything. But even if he had 50 grand in the accounts, you're now looking at 100 grand that you're going to end up having to spend in order to get it. Because you're going to have to fight those kids.
And in his situation, so this occurred during COVID. So I, suspect that like so many other people, he was in relatively good health and those kind of things going on, and take the attitude of, oh, I have time to do this kind of planning down the road, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, boom.
Yep, because I don't remember what chronic disease he had. I don't remember if it was diabetes or something of that nature, but it was managed. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as if they were worried about him dying then. But with COVID, it got much worse.
Well, that's what we heard during COVID. It was those people that had those chronic conditions that likely without COVID, they live a long life. Wow. Do you know, so, this is a couple of years back now.
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Any idea of the outcome, or were you just totally?
Nope, I never got a chance to know. that I say, even if I got her first and last name, but unless she never applied, I would have, I would have no way of looking it up. But I'll never forget that, ever. It broke my heart not to be able to help her.
That is a nightmare. One that, you kind of want to know the end, but you don't.
No.
Yep. And folks, that's a situation that occurred during COVID. I live in Maricopa County, Arizona, the 5th most populated county in the United States. I can't turn the TV on without I-10 or I-17 or Loop 101 is shut down this morning because of a fatal car accident. Every day,
Yep.
People are getting up, getting in their car, they're heading into work. They expect tomorrow they're going to do the same thing, but they might not. So
Exactly.
we don't know when these things can happen. Wow.
Yep. Tomorrow is promised to none of us. And something that scares people, and I totally get it. But instead of letting it scare you, let it motivate. Let it make you think, okay, if I'm up and I'm breathing and I'm fine today, what can I do today that may not be available tomorrow?
Right.
So I'm with you. And so if anyone that's listening, I hope that it motivates you. That we don't tell you to scare you. We tell you because we want to see you peaceful. And we want to see you whole.
So I always go for the big takeaway. What's the big takeaway? How could this be avoided? Well, obviously, the avoidance step would have been, and in this case, especially with stepchildren and those kind of things, a full-on estate plan and trust. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I am not an attorney. I just talked to a lot of y'all. But even if it was still an intestate situation upon his death, if they had done nothing more than gotten healthcare POA, financial POAs, and HIPAA documents signed, it would have at least given her access to funds, yes, make the medical decisions without a drawn out process of fighting for guardianship, and at least through that process kept the stepchildren at bay.
Yes, it would have. The other thing is, if he would have, even if it was just his name on it, if he would have just taken the steps to also put beneficiaries on those accounts and made his wife beneficiary, she wouldn't have to worry about, so she had a POA and then she was the beneficiary at his passing, she'd have been good. Because you don't owe your children anything. In the state of Ohio, the only person you cannot disinherit is your spouse. So if he decided he wanted her to have everything, as mad as they would have been, that's his decision. The issue is he did not make a decision. So now there's going to be a fight.
That's something.
Yep.
Yikes.
Indeed. So let me give you a good scenario to at least give you a bit of a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Of all of that bitterness. I've got a good one for you. So I had a lady who came into my office when I used to work for an elder care firm. And she was looking to, get estate planning done because she didn't have any family left. Her siblings, she had outlived her siblings. She had a nephew and a niece from one of her sisters, but she never knew them. You know what I mean? And it was, they didn't really have a lot of contact, but she had a husband who had passed away, 25 years ago. And the only person that was really in her life was a caregiver. So this caregiver had been taking care of her since her husband passed away. So they came in and she said, I want to leave everything to my caregiver. She has been my family. She's been my best friend. I don't have children. I don't have a husband. I don't know the only two other family members. They live out, in California. I've never met them, so I want her to have it. I went through all of the, rigmarole of making sure that the caregiver wasn't, poisoning her mind. She wasn't, coercing her into doing anything. I was very satisfied, that this is what she wanted. So I drew up all the paperwork. I created a trust for her. I helped her to, make beneficiaries so that, the caregiver received whatever it is she wanted her to receive. And, then I quit the law firm and I didn't see her for quite some time. Now, fast forward, I have now opened my own firm. So this was last year. And I get a phone call from the caregiver. I haven't seen this woman in, I want to say, almost 5-6 years. And she said, unfortunately, she's gone. She passed away. The only thing that she needed was the last income return check, like she had done her awards last income taxes for the year, and they returned an income tax check. That is one of the only things that you cannot put a beneficiary on. That was the only thing that had to go through probate.
Wow.
Everything else had beneficiaries, which I helped her transfer them. We were done in 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. You can't get any better than that. I mean,
That's amazing.
An income tax return check, you cannot put a beneficiary on it. So there was nothing she could have done but to go through probate for it. But that probate process, I say, maybe lasted, I'll take it back. It was about a month. And that's only because we had to get a court date. Minus that, we were done. So it can be done. This woman died peacefully. Everything went exactly where she wanted it to go, and nobody had struggles.
Wow. That's a much better story than the first one.
That's what I figured, like I'll leave you with a good one. So it can be done, everyone. You just need to have somebody that's going to help you walk through it.
It's interesting. I was talking to a young lady. I want to say it was like last week. It was probably a couple months ago. Anyway, she utilized our platform and getting everything in there, and she's talking about things. But she said, I just don't know who to leave stuff to. I mean, her parents are deceased. She has no siblings. She has no family, and those kind of things. And so for people out there, if you don't have the immediate family or that kind of stuff, you still have things. It has value, and it can be left anywhere you want it to be. In this case, what a beautiful story to the caregiver. But maybe you have a favorite charity, an alumni association, or somewhere. Consider, if you don't have any direct family, next of kin, leaving it to somewhere where it can really make an impact and make a difference.
Agreed, 1,000. And it can be done anonymously if you choose, or anything of that nature. So, and an estate planning attorney can help you do all of the above. So that would be, I agree with you completely.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I really appreciate that.
Sure.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you're thinking, man, I wish you asked me this question?
No, not really. I mean, truly, I love your premise. I can tell you right now, listeners, that I use his platform. I give it to all of my clients. I don't say that because he's paying me. I'm saying that because it's amazing. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I use it for my husband and I. I've given it to my parents. It is an amazing tool. So anybody out there that's listening, you definitely want to get in contact with John and listen to how My Life in Wishes works. Because it can really be a lifesaver. And I don't say that as a euphemism. Like, if you log in and have that information and you can give it almost immediately, you really could end up saving someone's life. So
Well, thank you.
awesome.
I greatly appreciate
You're more than welcome.
Your testimonial, it means a lot. As you know, we work with estate planning attorneys all across the country who make this available for their clients, just because it's so important. And the whole premise behind it was, if I don't make it home tonight, that my family, at the touch of a button, with a full roadmap to everything
Exactly.
that they need. So
Yep.
that's
And I
really
love that.
cool.
I love
So
it.
you're in the greater Cleveland area, right? So you
I am.
practice in Ohio, right?
Yep.
Do you practice anywhere outside Ohio or just
I do
Ohio?
not. Just in Ohio. The bar exam was hard enough the first time. I'm good with the rest of the states. So
So
yeah.
any of you listeners, if you are in Ohio, if you have family or friends in Ohio, that maybe need some planning done, if they haven't done it, I'd encourage you to reach out to Kori. She is just an amazing human being, and you could not be in better hands for your family and your legacy. How can our listeners get a hold of you, Kori?
Well, first of all, thank you so very much, John. I very much appreciate you. Thank you. But yes. Also, if for anybody that has an estate plan that is more than 3 years old, they should still come see me, because those are considered to be out of date. So even if you think, oh no, I did a will a long time ago, nope, we need to get it reviewed. Let's take a look at it, make sure it's up to date with the laws. We'll get you covered. But how you can get a hold of me, I am actually going to be giving John all of my links, so he's going to be posting that for you. But you can feel free to look at my website, as well as my LinkedIn page. And I'm also giving you a link to my free consultation. So I offer a free 30-minute consultation, so we can really talk through what it is you're looking at, what it is you need, and we can see whether or not we'd be a good fit to work together. So yep, I'd love to get a chance to talk to you. I also do a bi-weekly newsletter. So every other Monday, unless there's a holiday in there, but every other Monday, I send out a newsletter. If you wish to be part of that, I give information about estate planning, and I also I give information about all of the events that my friends and colleagues are having as well. Because I want it to be a community affair. And also, you never know what somebody might see and say, oh my goodness, I need that. And so if I can get that out there, to everyone listening as well as everyone reading, I'd love to do it. So I'm going to have all those links for John. Feel free to contact me. I'd love to get a chance to talk to you.
Oh, that's terrific. Yes, and I will post them all at the bottom of the show notes. There'll be hyperlinks so you folks can just reach out, even if you're not in the Ohio area, even if you don't
Yes.
have friends or family in the Ohio area. Sign up for the newsletter, because I'm in Arizona. I get her newsletter, and it's awesome. There's good content and good information there. So sign up for it. You never know, you pick up on some good ideas. I always say, free information and advice is pretty good. So
I agree. Thank you. Yes, and I agree. Feel free, even if you're outside, I'd love to talk to you. And actually, if you still want to do a consultation, I'd love to at least to answer your question. I'm more than happy to do that.
great point. And legal professionals all across the country.
Sure do.
You have a 15-minute consult, no obligation, with Kori, and you're in Nebraska. She can connect you with counsel in Nebraska. So
Sure can. Sure can.
awesome. Hey, Kori, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's always wonderful to talk to you. Very insightful, and I'm sure it was for our listeners as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. I love hanging out with you.
Terrific. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Join us again soon for another enlightening episode. And as always, plan ahead and make it a great day. Thank you for listening. You can subscribe, listen, and download all the Estate Planning Nightmares episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We'd be grateful if you would save our show to your favorites and share them with others. Remember, life is messy, but death is messier. You can learn more about My Life and Wishes Legacy Vault at www.mylifeandwishes.com. Plan ahead and make it a great day.